Hey folks, welcome back to Dominions 5. I needed to make an addendum to my Phaeacia video because there's a couple of things that I left out about Phaeacia that are quite interesting. This is just a random map that I generated without changing any of the default settings. And I did this to show off something. You may notice, if you look up my stats up here, this one province apparently has 606 income and 189 resources. You may notice that that's a little bit unusual. That's because this is an island. Phaeacia loves to start on islands. If they have the option, the random map generator will put Phaeacia on an island. And if Phaeacia is on an island, which is defined, I believe, as a land province with no more than one other land connections, including rivers, it spawns an extra site, the Orichalcum mine, which gives you 150 extra gold per turn and 100 resources. So, just as a demonstration of how powerful this can be, there's some ways in which it's powerful and some ways in which it's very weak, but to show how powerful it can be, we've taken a dormant god instead of a Drakon and a Wake Expander just to maximize our things up here with regeneration and double reinvigoration. Our Lady of Perpetual Lightning. We had to take Turmoil 2, but that doesn't really hurt us that much. And Heat 3, and we still got Growth 3, Luck 3, and Magic 3. You could cancel out the Magic and the Luck and have really good scales over here, and then your income and resources would be even higher. But that lets you recruit a bunch of guys right off the bat. It's effectively, it's equivalent to having a small cap circle just in your capital province, so it can't be taken away. On top of that, of course, you can still trace income across the water, so while you don't have a capital circle on your island, you won't ever get more resources from other provinces. You will still get income if you take one of these provinces. Now, in order to expand from this position, you have to rely on your dark vessels, so you definitely have to profitize your first scout. He, of course, can sail, so you can sail him across here, spread your dominion to one of these places, and make progress that way, helped by the fact that you can churn out, just like I said, a lot of troops. You can, I mean, this is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 Colossi Light Infantry turn 1, plus you can recruit just a mage pilot, because you're running short on gold at this point, actually. And then, like I said, if you cut this down, if you went Luck 0, and Magic 0, that gives you 6 extra scales you can put over here, which means you could be Order 3 Prod 2, or more likely you could be Production 3 and then cut down like Neutral Order, because you're not recruitment point limited at all. Maybe Neutral Order or Turmoil 1 and then cut down the heat scales to Heat 1, which is your preferred temperature. So then your income will just be bonkers. Like your income here will be like 700 or something equally ridiculous. It gives you a very strong early advantage. However, there is a serious problem with this. The serious problem is, if there is a water nation or an amphibious nation like Agartha with access to your water, you are screwed. Because you can't actually go underwater very easily as Phaeacia. You don't have any amphibious units. So, if Agartha is, if say there's a cave up here with Agartha in it, then he just goes boop, boop, boop. Now he owns all this water. And now your capital can be attacked at any moment from locations that you can't really attack. He can build a fort, like right here. Maybe he can fort all 3 of these provinces. And then you're kind of just dependent on Agartha's mercy to live, because at any point, he can just roll up here, shut down your capital, cut the income in half, prevent you from recruiting anything here, so then you can't recruit any of your prince consorts or colossi queens, or any of your troops, and just kind of wait. And yeah, you can sail back to defend it, but it's not wise. It's not going to work. So Island Phaeacia is, on the one hand, can be incredibly broken, just brokenly powerful because of their extremely lucrative capital. But on the other hand, they can be incredibly vulnerable. It's almost a binary check at the start of the game, like, do you have a water nation or an amphibious nation that can reach this water? YN. If yes, you lose. If no, you're in a really good position to win. So, that's interesting. I wouldn't really recommend playing Island Phaeacia. Like, I don't think it's wise. Like I said, it's a huge gamble, and you might just straight up lose the game at the start, or if you win the gamble, then you have this kind of, like, unfair advantage over everybody else, because land nations can't attack you, and your capital is super powered, like, just juiced beyond all recognition. So by the mid-game, you'll be pulling in, like, a ton of money from this one province, and the rest of your empire is sort of an appendage, which is an interesting playstyle, I suppose, but not a great one for the health of the game, if that makes sense. I prefer Coast Phaeacia, where you don't get the sight, and you're more of a traditional land nation, with the addition of the sailing power, so you still have that high mobility, but you don't have the invincible island fortress. In any case, that's one of the things that I missed. The other thing that I missed was talking about national items, so let's look at those real quick. Okay, so here are the Phaeacian national items, which are actually quite interesting. First of all, they have the Windcatcher Sail. The Windcatcher Sail just costs air gems that you're likely to have in spades, and it lets you sail one province further than normal, so it's just a mobility buff. It increases your already very, very powerful mobility that little bit further. You then have two kinds of silk garments, the purple silk and the silver silk. Purple silk is very low level. It increases your defense and magic resistance, and it gives you the Twist Fate effect. So that's interesting. It only costs 5 gems in total, which then is further reduced by your bonus to 4 gems. So, you know, for something that cheap, this is something that you can slap on mages very easily and cheaply, and it's quite effective, to be honest. If you give a weaver a hammer that you get from somewhere, you can use the hammer plus your native discount to reduce it to 2 gems, which should be one of each type. And a Twist Fate item that gives a tiny little bit of armor and plus defense and magic resistance. I mean, it's not super powerful, but at that price, you can't beat it, right? I mean, it's perfectly good. You then also have the Silver Silk Garments. The Silver Silk Garments give more magic resistance and reinvigoration, 2 points of reinvigoration. Once again, super cheap. Same price, just costs air gems instead of water. Any of your weavers can forge this because they are Astral 1, Air 1. So this is once again something you can just use to boost the effectiveness of your communions. If you're not turbo communioning, if you're not relying on regeneration, then an extra 2 points of reinvigoration for all the slaves in your Thunderstrike communion is really powerful, actually, especially because you can get an Earth random as a communion master to stack it with Earth power. So now you have Earth power, the reinvigoration from Silver Silk Garments. You'll probably want to weave in a Nature Mage to cast Relief. And, yeah, then you'll be reinvigorating a lot. All of your slaves, all the time. And since they have the same paths, air and astral, if you've boosted them properly and you're casting primarily air spells, that communion will last for a very, very long time, even if you're not turbo communioning. Just because your slaves will be taking, like, 5 or 10 fatigue per cast, and then reinvigorating, I think about 8 per round. So that's another item that can be very potent, and since it's so cheap, you can kind of go the Ulm strategy and forge one for everybody, basically. There's one other thing that Phaeacia has that's not super powerful, but it is kind of neat. I don't need heroes. These guys, Gigantes. So, Phaeacia has a yearly event, which is related to Makone. So the storyline of Makone goes, the Gigantes declared war against the gods, they fought the war, and they lost. That led into Middle Age Phlegra. But not all of the Gigantes were part of the war. Some of them escaped to Black Korkaros, which is an island, and it's actually one of the starting magic sites of Phaeacia. The Colossi of Phaeacia fought a war against the Gigante escapees, led by Nausithos, the son of Eurymedon, the king of the Gigantes, and they won, and the Gigantes surrendered and intermarried with the Colossi, and after that, they settled on Black Korkara, and so Nausithos married the Colossi queen, and now the Gigantes of Black Korkara show up every year. Every year you get a leader, just a basic Gigante commander, and a group of Gigantes, these Ducati Hoplites. Now, these are slightly nerfed versions of early age Makone's Ducati Hoplites. They don't have magic weapons, they don't have the golden spears, so we can look at the Ducati Hoplites for comparison's sake. They have slightly less hit points, slightly lower stats in every way, less protection because they don't have the magic armor, they don't have the golden spears, so their damage and attack is lower, but they are still quite potent giant hoplites. And you get them for free, and you can't knock free. Like I said, this event happens yearly. You don't get many. I think it's like 6 plus a Locos. Because there should be 2 Locos. Yeah. So you get 6 plus one of these Locos. The Locos actually does still have the magic weapons, but the Gigantes don't. But so you get one of these guys who's a good leader, and has, magic armor, magic weapons. So you could actually thug him if you wanted to, because he has the stats for it, most definitely. You get, I think, about 6 of the Gigantes, and then you just have them for free. You have to pay upkeep on them, and their upkeep is fairly high, but it's nothing unreasonable, especially considering the amount of cash you're going to have. And, of course, the Dark Vessels applies to them, so this Locos can sail, and he has a really high map move because he's a giant. So it's a pretty nice little Benny. It's not game-defining or anything, but it does give you a little bit of something extra to kind of play around with. So that's just a little extra things about Phaeacia. So like I said, the most interesting part is definitely the items. Those extra items that Phaeacia gets can actually be very potent for communions, especially the silver silk garments. The Windcatcher Sail. The Windcatcher Sail is nice because you can give it to one of your sailing commanders, like a Colossi Storm Captain, and have him lead pretty significant armies. Now, it should be noted, Gigantes are size 4, and so they actually cannot sail outside of the Dark Vessels. The Dark Vessels can carry them, but none of your commanders can actually, technically, sail with size 4 units. Because your Colossi Storm Captains here have sailing size max 3. Nobody has max 4. Storm Captains are max 3. Mage Pilots and Wind Callers also Wind Callers max out at 3, Mage Pilots max out at 2, and Phaeacian Captains max out at 2 as well. So only the Dark Vessels can carry Gigantes. But you know what? They add a little bit of meat where you need that little bit of meat. But it's the items that are most interesting and useful. Purple Silk is pretty decent and cheap. Silver Silk is generally a better option because of the reinvigoration for Communion mages. Purple Silk can be decent if you want one of your capital-only mages to have a little bit higher defense score, like just in case, I guess. Overall, I would prefer the Silver Silk. The extra point of magic resistance and the reinvigoration, both very, very nice. And the Windcatcher Sail just has, that little bit of utility you can catch people off guard with. And that kind of is one of the big themes of Phaeacia, is catching people off guard, is being able to do the thing that your opponent isn't ready for. And of course, you can do the thing they are ready for. You can spam Air Elementals and Thunderstrike and all that, and that's still very powerful. And even if countered, even if your opponent deploys the appropriate counters to that strategy, it can still work just because it's good. But you then also have the flexibility to do all kinds of things that they may not be expecting. To, launch attacks that they might not have prepared for, to cast spells they might not think you have ready. You have the strong research, you have the strong income, you have the mobility. Phaeacia is a very good nation, and it's largely because of that flexibility as opposed to the inherent strength of their magic. Although, as I said, their magic is inherently quite strong as well. So, just a little additional note. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.